Good morning, Rowan. You may have heard about the latest controversy with the live-action Avatar series. So Ian Ousley, the actor of Sokka, apparently claims to be Cherokee. According to Cherokee Phoenix, a newspaper published in both Cherokee and English by the Cherokee Nation itself, Ian Ousley has no claim to being Cherokee. In fact, the source goes as far as to say the tribe he claims to be from is a fraud, unrecognized by the three Cherokee governments. And in a massive blunder of fact-checking by the Netflix crew, there is a database called the Cherokee Nation Film Office. He is not registered in that. And it was like a simple letter or phone call even for them to just get back to see if he could claim Cherokee on his resume. If blood was the only requirement, then you could have reasonably argued that a Mexican Sokka would have fulfilled that requirement. There was a caste system based off of how much Iberian native or African heritage a New World subject had, and if Wikipedia is any indication, 80% of Mexico has mixed heritage, or mestizo. But let's talk about Native Americans within the USA for a second. For starters, Native Americans like the Cherokee have a special status among minorities in America because of the unique history of Native Americans. Unlike Asian Pacific Islanders or any other minority group, Native Americans have their own governance with their own laws, customs, and lands. If it helps, try thinking about them as a nationality. If you are an American, your citizenship is based off right of soil. One can be ethnically Korean, but if you are born here, then you are an American citizen. Most other countries have a citizenship based off right of blood. One inherits the citizenship from a parent. In the case of Israel, one can receive citizenship through a Jewish grandparent, Jewish spouse, or flat-out convert. Native American tribes, likewise, have their own rules for citizenship, and this rule set is split between the U.S. government, specifically under the Department of the Interior, and the Native Americans. One of the rules is a certificate of degree of Indian blood, and in that is a blood quantum. Some nations are a bit more stringent on the blood quantum requirement. After all, these are nations within nations. Navajo and Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians require blood quantums above a certain threshold. This is really controversial because blood quantum is part of the old days where we try to measure race less as a social construct and more like a hard, fast, scientific, biological reality. Indians would essentially breed themselves out of, well, being Indian, because after all, you don't have to honor a treaty when you set your threshold at, 50%. This is just an example. I'm not actually saying there's a tribe that does a 50% threshold for Indianness. And then you can just dispel your legal duty saying, hey wait, no one has a 50% threshold. So it's not good. And if 2013 statistics still hold in 2022, Native Americans did have a lot of interracial marriages and still have a lot of interracial marriages. It will be interesting to see how tribal laws in the Navajo Nation and other people who use the blood quantum more stringently will shift in the future. Also, some fans have either jokingly or seriously suggested a skin color test. I refuse to humor this nonsense. A pasty Native American is no less a Native American than a dark-skinned one. But enough about watered-down history and politics. Let's talk about the controversy around Ian. Clearly, no tribe has claimed him, so he can't claim to be Cherokee as a nationality. So, how does this affect my opinion of the live-action Avatar the Last Airbender? Well, let's take a look at my first issue. I made it very clear in my first video that the fandom should not cling to this paradigm that the water tribes are Inuits, the Earth Kingdom is China, the Air Nomads are Tibet, and the Fire Nation is Japan. Clinging to this paradigm downplays the other cultures used to craft and inspire the fantasy cultures before you, and I still stand by this. The issue at hand has nothing to do with this claim. There is no overlap in this Venn diagram. One is about embracing the many cultures which inspired my favorite show, and the other is simply resume fraud and bad fact-checking, and it should be treated as such. If you need to be in good health to get a job, then you need to be in good health to get a job. If you need to be able to play a tuba for a job, then you should be able to play a tuba for a job. And this is just an issue of not being qualified for the job you were asked to do. After all, you're an actor. Your appearance does matter in both costuming, set design, and, of course, physicality. The clone troopers, not the clone troopers, the Death Troopers of Rogue One were required to be 6 feet tall, and I don't see this as any different than that, honestly. Meanwhile, this controversy has little to no bearing on my other issues, which I find take more precedent than the casting. As far as I'm concerned, I am really worried that this series could be a shot-for-shot remake, that this series could lose the charm of the animated series because of a shift to live action, not to mention looking cheap. Again, appearances are more than just the race of the actors, it's the set design, the costume design, and of course, the fight choreography and the bending. I want to look at that. Also, Appa and Momo. I honestly don't know how people can rant about this for 2 hours at a time. This is exhausting for both me and the dinosaur computer I'm using to make this on. Well, goodbye, Rowan. Hopefully this computer doesn't melt.